So, hey, welcome back students. Today we are going to learn about tiles and tile mapping and how to add a collider to a tile map and then how to animate some of our character. Some of this is something we already done in class, but if this is a new group of students, hey, this is for you. So this is the game state as of now. We have the player and then you have the enemies, you can jump and you can interact with the environment. So this is what y'all have so far. If you touch that, then your character reset and so on and so forth. So we're gonna move on to creating a tile map. So before we talk about the tile map, I want to introduce Unity Asset Store. So if you go to Google and search for Unity Asset Store, you can find this amazing website. It's simply Unity website, and if you log in with your Unity account, you will simply be able to find all those deals and free stuff. Since we're doing 2D, I'm going to navigate to the 2D. You can either get it from up here or down here. And I'm specifically looking for the free stuff. There is of course paid stuff, and the more money you pay, the better quality it is. And also, if you manage to make an asset, you can also put it up at the store and sell it and make some money that way. Alright, so we're gonna go to the free, and as you all can see, I already found this one and used it before. So this is the asset we're gonna practice on, since it has a very simple pixelated tile map and characters, and the video game we're gonna make is going to be a pixel art video game style. So we are gonna use this one just for the lesson. So if you already have it, you can open it in Unity or download it, depends on what button you say. And then if you didn't log into your Unity account, it's just gonna ask you to log in. Very simple procedures, like straightforward. I'm in already. And then you're gonna see the asset here. So you can download the asset, and when it finished downloading, you can import it, and I'm gonna import everything. And that's how you import an asset to Unity through the store. And you can also copy it and paste it. So for example, in class I gave you all a link that you can download the same exact asset, so you just drag it and drop it in Unity, and that's how you will get it. And usually in an asset like this, you're gonna find a demo scene. I'm gonna save this, and the demo scene, it's either gonna have a playable demo or just all the stuff that the package is offering. So alright, we're going to create a new scene, and this scene will be our scene for our tile map. So right click, create, and then we're gonna select a scene, and I'm gonna call it tile map. As you can see right now, I am on the scene part of my asset that I imported, Pixel Adventure. You don't have to create it here, I'm just creating it here for convenience. Alright. My scene currently is empty, there is nothing in it, and we are going to start creating our tile map. So back to the asset. If I went to the asset, I went to terrain, you all can see that there is a lot of terrain that are already built in, and we have this one, which is just the terrain. They are 16 by 16, that's the size, and we have this one which says sliced. That just means the sprite have been pre-sliced into small parts, and Unity can automatically do that for you, or you can slice them yourself. The AI that sliced them for you is pretty smart to do the slicing most of the time, so it's not like an issue if you let it do it. Like it will honestly do a great job. But in this asset, whoever designed the asset just sliced them or pre-sliced them, so we're gonna use the pre-sliced one. One thing we want to fix, since we're talking about every unit of tile will be 16 by 16, so we need to change this to 16 from 100, just to have it fitting our map better, because if you kept it 100, it's going to look really small. And then you're going to hit apply. And then we're going to go to Windows, we're going to go to 2D, and then we will open the tile palette. And the tile palette is simply the place that you will put your tile, then you can use the brush and paint your tiles on your scene. So we're gonna create a new palette, and since this is the terrain, I'm just gonna write terrain. and I will create it. And you can save it anywhere. So currently I'm on the terrain file. I'm gonna just create a new folder and I will call it tiles. I'm just making a new folder. This is just for organization purposes. It does not make or break anything. Just make your life much easier if your files are organized. And then I will simply take the sliced version and drag it and drop it, and it will ask me where do I want to save it. I want to save it in the tiles folder and select, and it will simply load all the tiles from the pre-sliced image to here. And now I can select whatever part I want to draw, and as you can see I'm selecting this. I can't just directly draw here. We have to create a 2D asset for our tile map. So right click, 2D object, tile map, rectangle, because those are rectangular shape. And now I can simply draw whatever I want. So I can hold my mouse and draw, maybe draw the edge pieces, and then maybe draw more of these. I'm just doing a quick drawing. It doesn't really have any meaning. Just building one island. Just gonna move it on the side. And as you all can see, I have a tile map here. And there is another thing. I can select this whole box and then put it. And now I printed the whole box. I can do it with as many or as small of part that I need. And there is so many more things you can do with your tiles. Alright, that's simply it. And then if you want to use the paint tool, you can, and so much more. Now, how to add a collider to those tiles. So we learned before about adding a collider by going to add component, and if you write collider, you have all kind of different collider. For tile map, there is actually a specific collider for them. It's a tile map collider. And the cool thing about this collider is it goes specifically to the individual tiles that we have. So if I made the gizmos visible and we did just make the collider on, okay? So now if I'm on it, we would be able to see tile map collider 2D, yeah. So, and yeah. Oh, my bad, yeah. So if I select the grid, it's gonna, okay, now it's actually showing up. I don't really know why it wasn't shown up a minute ago. You can see every single one of those tiles have a collider, and that would just make it better. So instead of making a single collider for every tile, you just use it for the whole thing. Is there a waste of collider? Like for example, these tiles in the middle, do they really need a collider? They don't, because they are in the middle. There is a way to not give them a collider just to save some room, but it's not necessary for this lesson. As of like this, it's just gonna do the part we want it to do. So now if my character fell here, it will not go through, it will actually land on them. And for a test, I can just create a 2D ob sprite, and I'm gonna make a square, and I'll just give it a collider, a box collider, and I will make it a rigid body so it falls with gravity. And if I started it, it won't fall through, as you all can see now. It will simply just drop to the top of the tile map and stop there, just like any other collider. It's just taking a minute. Yep, just like that. It's a collider. So the box will always land on my tiles. Like, and then if I put it here, it's gonna fall through. Yeah, that's simply how to add a collider to your tile map. Alright, next step would be making our character and giving it animation. So I'm going to start by deleting this box because we don't really need it. And now we're going to do the same thing with the asset. So if I went back to the Pixel Adventure and I went to asset and I went to main character, there is a lot of main characters that are already made. So one of them is this ninja frog, I guess, or what do they call it? Yeah, ninja frog. Yeah, 16 by 16 pixel or 32 by 32 pixel ninja frog that we can use. And this is the other thing. What I can do is I can just select them all and then change this from 100 to 32 and apply it just to have it set correctly. And you all can see this. Like, for example, this ideal, we have different animation for the frog while it's on the ideal stage. We have it falling, we have it jumping, we have an animation when it gets hits, we have an animation when it's running, we have a double jump. So this is, if you're making a 2D game or a pixel art game, this is something you would need to do for all your character. So it takes time, it takes energy, but it makes your game way better. So since we're gonna use this frog, I'm gonna just drag the frog. So you can just drag the idle, the one that is steady, or you can do the whole thing. So this is one thing I'm noticing. I think it's too small when I set it to 32. So I'm just gonna go ahead and change it from 32 by selecting all of them again. And I'm gonna make it 16 just so it fits better. Yeah, that looks better. So 16 looks better, so I'm gonna stick with 16. So this is my frog. And I'm gonna add a rigid body 2D, and then you can add a collider to it. So when it comes to collider for objects that are not square or a specific shape, you can use the polygon collider, and what this polygon collider will do, it would try to trace the object as best as it can. And I think there is even a better one. There is the composite collider, I think. No, it's not the composite collider. Let's see. Custom collider, maybe. I don't know. It's not custom collider. Actually, it's not in the collider part. If you go here and go to the sprite edit, you can go to the physics shape, and then you can create a generated collider, and you can like drag and blah 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 and make it perfect, etc. But we're not gonna do that because we had like the frog would shrink and extend based on the position, so that's really gonna throw it off. So the best kind of collider when you're working with tilemap, believe it or not, is the circle collider. Yes, the circle might be a little bit bigger than your character, a little bit smaller, but we can adjust that. So I'm going to, for example, change the radius to make it a little smaller, and then the Y would be down, down, down. So I'm gonna try to make it like yay, maybe. I think the x-axis was okay at 0, maybe like yay. And as you all can see, like it doesn't perfectly fit, but here the other thing, you want to give your players a wiggle room. You don't want something up here to hit them and then they lose just because it went over their head because of your bad collider. So yeah, we're gonna adjust it a little bit, maybe like even this. I'm gonna drag it down, then maybe make it a little bit bigger, maybe like that, and let's see. Yeah, I would call that good. I mean, you might find it a little bit weird, but yeah, maybe it's 7, 8. Let's do it like that. Yeah, I think that's better. So that would be my collider. And when you use this collider, you would notice something. If we had the player moving, which it might not move, yeah, it didn't move because we didn't put the movement script. So I would go back, I will go to my script, I will pull the player movement script, and I will add it to my character and make the speed 10, jump 100, and let's move it and see what happens. So it spins around because it's a circle, and circles are gonna rotate. So how can we fix that? We can simply go to the rigid body, go to constraint, and freeze the Y rotation. When you freeze the Y rotation, the character is gonna move like this. So right now we have this frog sliding over the tile map, but we don't want that. We want to see animation. So let's go ahead and add that. And here where I'm gonna introduce something new to you, which is going to be our animation. All right, I'm gonna go back to the asset. I'm gonna go to my new asset, and I will go back to my frog. So the first kind of animation we have here is when the character is not moving, when it's on the ideal or idle. I don't really know how to pronounce it correctly today. So let's add that animation. So to add animation, we want to go to Windows, and then we're going to go to Animation and click Animation, or Control 6 for shortcut. And you're going to have this tiny window. This is a useful window. So I'm just going to make it like this. We don't need it to be that big. I will create a new animation and I will call it frog. And I will leave it in the frog folder. Or actually, let's create a new file. And I'm going to call it animation. And this folder is inside the frog, and I'm going to call it frog. So now all the animation I want to add for the frog are going to go here. So let's start by the idle animation. So I can open it and select all those frogs. So select the first one, hold shift and select the last one, and then drag them and drop them here. And then if you played it, y'all are gonna notice the frog is doing the animation, but it's a little too fast. So I want it to be a little bit slower. So we can do that. So if I zoomed in, I think this is zoomed in enough, and if you extend it you can see the frogs. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select them and then drag them and put the space to be 2, so 2 frames per animation. How do I know 2 frames per animation is a good rate? I tried and I came to the conclusion that 2 frames were good for this specific character. Other characters might have a different amount of spacing that y'all are gonna find to be more useful. So yeah, I'm just gonna finish this real quick. Now we're gonna see it. Yeah, excuse my voice. I think I'm fighting a cold, so you might be watching this video without me being in the classroom. So we'll see how that will work. But hopefully I will be able to come to the classroom. Alright, so now that looks more natural to me. Some people might think this is also still fast and they want it slower. Hey, it's all up to you. You decide, it's your game. Whatever looks good to you, whatever looks good to your player. So I'm gonna pause it, and now we're gonna start the game and we will see. So it's doing the stopped animation, but when you move, it's still moving with that animation. So now we need to add a second animation for running, and then a third animation for jumping. So let's go ahead and do that. Oh, by the way, you can also give, so whenever you're working with the tile map, this is where you drew, this is like the parents. So I'm gonna just change the name of this to ground, just to differentiate it from other tiles that we might do in the future. And I will give it the tag ground, so my player can actually jump when it steps on it. Alright, so we have that done. Now we're going to add the moving animation. And to do that, I'm going to call the animation window again by hitting Ctrl S. And I will go ahead on frog and I will create a new clip. And in animation, I'm going to call it frog run. And I will save it. Alright. So on frog run, we are going to add the running animation, which would be this. So I'm going to select all those running motions, drag them and drop them. And again, they will be a little bit squeezed. So you know what I'm going to do? Let's see how this feels. Normal speed, too fast. So what I'm going to do is just select them all and move them to step. Select, I'm just gonna extend this window a little bit because I think we have room to do that. Right, 2-step and maybe. Alright, I just finished separating all of them, 2 more like steps between each, and now you can see it looks more natural to me, the running animation. And let's play the game and see what happens. So I'm still on the ideal, I move, nothing changed. So we need to fix that, and we can fix it right now. So let's go ahead and fix that. So this is the ideal animation, and then we have the frog animation where the frog is running. So let's work with that. So there is this other window for animation. So if you go to animation and you go to the animator, this tab, you're gonna get to this. And you can see entry, so when the game starts I go to the frog. So, and then this one is frog run, so we want to connect the frog to frog run, so we want to be ideal first and then we move, right? So I will make a transition to here, and then on the transition, one thing you want to do to make it more natural is has time exit is off and then the transition duration down to 0. So what this does has exit time, basically wait, kind of like slow down to move to the second animation. But in pixel art you don't need that, and you don't need it to finish the previous animation before it starts the new animation. You want it to start moving as soon as you click move, so it looks more natural. When would you do something like this? For example, when you have a reload animation in a gun, you would want the whole reload animation to finish before the gun starts shooting. But in our situation, since we actually don't want to wait for the whole ideal animation to finish before we start moving, we don't need that. So this is the optimal setting for this. And then here, we're gonna add some parameter that will help us control the animation. So we're gonna add a float, and we will call it speed. So how do we know when our character is moving? The best indicator is how fast it is. If the character speed is more than 0, that means it's moving. If the character speed is less than 0, that means it's not moving. So we're gonna go, so we added our parameter in here by going to parameter. We were here at layers, we're gonna go to parameter and we added it. And now in here, we can add the parameter down here, and the parameter is speed. We're gonna say if the speed is greater than 0, then I'm moving. So I want my character to be moving. And then we're going to make another transition from this layer back to here. So what happens if my speed is less than 0? Or actually less than, and then we're going to do 0.001. So what happens if my speed is very slow? That means I'm not moving anymore. So if my speed is greater than 0, I'm moving. If my speed is less than this very small number, I'm not moving. And again, I'm going to exit time, I'll take it, and I will make the duration time 0 for both animation. So this simply would make my speed change every time. Like if I am moving, I will be on the run animation. If I'm not moving, I will be on the stop animation. So that's being said, I'm just going to close this window again and we will call it again. We need to create a script for the animation. So I'm going to just go to the animation file and I'm going to create my script here. So I'm just going to call it animation. Alright, so after we made our file and before we start coding, I just want to show you something. So when we added the animation to our character, this section appeared. It's called animator. So we will be referring to this component while we are building or while we're coding. So in here, we're gonna do a public, and then it's gonna be animator, and it will be animator as a small letter. So the component name will start with capital, and I'm just keeping the same name just for the sake of simplicity. And then in the update, we're gonna call it animator dot set float. And the reason we're using float is because the speed we set was a float. Actually, I probably should have not saved that because this would give me an error. I'm just gonna do this for now. Alright, here. So this speed is a float, and because it is a float, we needed to use the set float here. And what is the speed we're gonna use? So we know that when our character is moving, we are using the rigid body velocity feature to tell the game, hey, my character is moving. That's what our player movement code is doing. So if we refer back to our player movement code, this is, you don't have to follow, this is not a step, I'm just showing you what I'm talking about. We can see that we are going to the rigid body velocity, that's what we're changing. So that's what we're going to be tackling or dealing with in this part. Alright, so what we're gonna need to do is we are going to need to add our rigid body. So we're gonna do another public, and then this time we're gonna use rigid just want to make sure I spell it correctly from the first time so I don't have to redo it a million times. So rigid body 2D RB, and then I'm gonna just put a semicolon, and now we're gonna say comma, and then we're gonna say RB dot velocity, and again, just for the sake of spelling everything correctly, dot x, because we want to focus on the velocity in the x direction. And let's see what that would give us, if there is any error, or is everything gonna work well. Alright, perfect, everything worked well. But just to let you know, this code has a mistake in it, and I'm gonna reveal the mistake right now. So we're going back to our scene here, and we can start the game. And as you all can see, this what will happen. My character is not gonna move actually, well, for two reasons. Reason number one is I forgot to take the animation code and drag it and put it in my player. So now the animation code is in my player. I can pick the rigid body and put it here, and then I can pick the animator and put it there. So now when I play it, this what would happen. My character will run, but when I go to this side, it's not running anymore. And the reason it's not running anymore is because if you looked at the move on horizontal, on this direction, the move is always going to be negative, right? But, well, the move is negative, and that means my velocity here is going to be negative. And in our code, in the animator, we said only if the speed is greater than 0, then I want it to move. So you have two solutions here. One, you can add another condition, which is just gonna make things complicated, which will be the condition if speed is less than 0, but then how are you gonna deal with the situation where the speed is not either more or less than 0? So the simplest way to do is to use a math function. So there is this math function called mathf dot absolute. So ABS is simply means the absolute value. And in math, as you all know, absolute value give you a positive number no matter what. So if we wrapped our RP velocity with the mathf function and we use the absolute value, what y'all are gonna notice here that I probably spelled something wrong. So let's see, what did I do wrong this time? Mathf does not exist, so I probably need to do something like mathf maybe. Let's try that. Yep, that's correct. Alright, so back to my game. Now, it doesn't matter which direction I'm on, it always going to run. And as y'all can see, it looks much better than what it used to be. And now, the last part is fixing the jumping. So, let's do that. So, actually one thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go back to the animator. I'm gonna change this from this very small value to a little bit bigger value. And that just because I don't like it when it slides to stopping. I would rather this is an aesthetic thing. So it doesn't matter. And this is just from whenever we finish running, going back to the ideal, and you don't have to change this. This is just me personally. If you want to ask me what I did or why I do that, you can ask me in class. I'm gonna just save it for now. So now let's deal with jumping. So I'm gonna just make the jumping a little bit higher so it's more obvious. Let's put it at 500 and let's run the game again. So if I jumped, y'all can see my character jumps, but there is no animation. It's just like doing the same thingy, going up and down while it's jumping. And let's actually do this. Let's help our camera a little bit by going to our asset again, script. I'm gonna just drag the camera script and drop it in the camera and select the target as my player. And let's see what would that make it look like. Yeah, that's much better. And now you can see the character is not having a jumping animation, so let's go ahead and add the jumping animation. So we're gonna follow pretty much the same steps. So I will go to Windows and I will go to 2D, actually not 2D this time, animation, and I will call the animator or Control X. I'll make sure I select my character and I will create a new animation and I will call it jump. Just make sure I have it in the right space all the time. I don't want to be in the wrong file and just lose my stuff. So I'm gonna make sure I'm here, and actually I'm gonna call it frog jump, and I will save it, and might as well, while on it, I'm gonna create another one. I'm gonna call it frog land or fall, because after you jump you fall. So let's go back to the frog jump, and I'm gonna go back to the asset, main character, frog ninja, and then this is the jump code. I'm gonna grab the jump animation, and then I will move to the fall, and I will grab the fall animation. So now I have a jump animation and a fall animation. This is the jump, this is the fall animation, and you can see it. That's the falling animation, that's the jumping animation. Perfect. So I'm done with this window again. I can close it, and if I went to my animator, I'm just gonna close this tab. If I went back to my animator, you can see that there is now a jump and there is a fall, and then there is this thing called any stat, or any state, sorry. Any state is what we need to connect to jump and fall, and the reason behind that is while you're running, if you jumped, you want jump to be a priority over running. So if you did any state, it means no matter what state your character currently at, it's gonna jump. So I'm gonna do the same connection, make a transition to jump, and then I will make a transition to fall. And the reason I'm doing this is because if you got to the edge, you wanna fall, you don't wanna jump to fall, you can fall without jumping. Just some philosophy there. And again, no exit time, and the duration will be 0. Same for here, has no exit and the duration will be 0. So now we're gonna add a new float, and this float will be jump or jumping. And there is multiple ways to do this. This way happened to be the easiest that I found without having to code so much. I'm trying to keep coding as minimal, but there is of course more better optimal ways of doing this, but this is like the fast, easy way. Alright, so after we added the jumping code, we're gonna go back to our coding here, and let's add another line of code for that. So we're gonna use the same thing, animator set float, and this time we're gonna write jump. I think I called it jumping. Isn't that what I called it? Let's double check. Yes, I called it jumping. So it's gonna be jumping. And what controls our up and down movement? According to our code here, which I'm gonna try to drag again. I don't know why it's not dragging. Alright. What controls our jump is, again, we're adding force to the y velocity axis. So what's simply controlling our jump will be the velocity on the y direction. If it's positive, it means we're flying upward. If it's negative, it means we're simply going down. So let's do that. So we're gonna write rb dot velocity y direction. That's simply, and we don't need to make it always positive because we want to differentiate between going up and landing. So let's try this now. And again, this is not complete. There is an error that will appear while we're working with this, and the only reason I'm going through with it is I just want you to see how this thing goes. And also we need to do one more connection between jumping and falling, because when you jump you eventually fall, and here where we would need to do some tweaking, and this would be 0 again, so no more of that. And let's add variables here to make it happen. So we will add, so right now I'm here between any stat to jump. I will add my jumping, and then if it is greater than 0, that means I'm jumping. And then if it is, and then on this one here, from any stat to falling, I'm going to make sure it's jumping. If it is less than 0, that means I'm falling. Alright, what about while I'm jumping? So I jumped. How do I know when I'm falling? Again, if jumping is less than 0, that means I'm falling. Alright, let's see what this will result in. And again, this is still missing things. So I'm going to go back to my scene and I will run it. And as you all can see, I'm always, so when I jump and I fall, it's perfect. But when I land, it's still on the jump animation, right? It's kind of doing this weird thing. So let's fix that. So there is 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is we didn't tell it what to do after you fall and jump things. So we can connect the the falling to the running, and we can also connect it to the ideal situation. And again, both of them will have no exit, and the duration will be 0 for both, 0 for the duration and no exit. Alright, so while I'm falling, how do I know when I'm hitting the ground? The best way to know when you're hitting the ground is if the value was 0. So if you're jumping and you're not moving anymore in the y direction, that means it's going to be 0. But the problem is you only have greater and less. So we need to come up with a solution. So we're going to say if your jumping velocity is smaller than this like small number, negative number, and then we're going to add another one for jumping, and we're going to say if it is greater, if it's less than 0.0001, and we're going to do the same thing here, 0.0001. Then so if your velocity is bigger than this number and smaller this number, which means it's really close to 0, then I want you to stop jumping. But also we need to add one more condition. If my speed is less than 0.001, which means if I'm technically not moving, also I want to be in the ideal, which is similar to this condition here. And if I fell down while I'm running, so we're going to do the same conditions. So I'm going to add 2 jumping, one is greater, one is less, and I'm just simply going to copy this from here, and I'm going to make this positive, and I'm going to add the speed, and this time the speed is greater than 0. So let's see what would happen if I play now and I go to my game. You can see, but see, it does this weird thing. It thinks it's jumping, but it's not really jumping. So I'm jumping now, I'm landing, and then now it's confused. Sometimes it runs, sometimes it thinks I'm jumping. And if we went to the animation building, you can see the jumping keep going crazy because it thinks I'm jumping. And the reason behind that is the way the tile map are laid. So we can add a buffer to protect us from this. And I found it to be good for the buffer to be around 1. This will be -1. So only jump when the jumping value is greater than 1, and only fall if the falling value is greater than 1. So now let's try it with that buffer and see how it would work. Of course, it might differ, depends on your game. So that is much better. So now when I jump, when I fall, everything is smooth. And you can see like my character is stuttering sometimes. And if you want to do this, you can grab the animation window and put it on the side so you can see them both at the same time. And you can move and see. Alright, see, that actually working smoothly. I'm surprised. I thought it wouldn't work this smooth. But yeah, one thing I can do is actually I can manage this buffer and make it a little bit bigger. Like I think 2 is even better than 1. So this one will be -2. And now it will even be smoother. And then when you jump and land, jump and land. And as you can see, we have a whole character that moves, jump and land. And you can make your platformer game now. Yeah, see, that's an issue we had there. So if I went and I touch the side like this, I'm technically not falling. So yay. There is ways around this. We just basically need to fix, I'm gonna drag this back here so we have all the room for our scene. We just need to fix the physics material and make the, what do you call it, the friction equal 0 on the side, so your character can't really just hold into the wall and not fall down. And yeah, that's simply what we would need to do for that. Maybe let's try the collision to be continuous and see what happens in that case. Yeah, I don't think it works yet. Yeah. So yep, that's something we can fix next time. It's not very necessity at the moment. So yeah, that's how you make a character with a collider, and the character is moving, and you also at the same time have a nice platform. So whenever we work with Mr. Boylan game, he wouldn't really want a platformer from what we understood. So what we can do is we can translate this from platformer to other form of gameplay. So it's not only attached to this, so we can just translate it to something else and make it work however we want.